Hey everyone, this is the Oracle specific walkthrough for Cloudblock. Let's get started. The first thing I'll do is be at the GitHub page for the Cloudblock project and go to the Oracle or OCI specific directory. Let's scroll down to the walkthrough. A quick note, you will need an Oracle Cloud account already. You should have set that up before we begin. And you'll have already done the Windows subsystem Linux setup and installed Terraform Git and created an SSH key pair. All right, on to the Oracle CLI. First things first, open PowerShell and Windows subsystem Linux. I'll search for the word power, open PowerShell, type in WSL. I'm in Windows subsystem Linux, and I'll need to change to the home directory. There we go. This is a long command here. Download the Oracle CLI installer. Just make sure you're copying the entire thing and paste that in. I've already performed, well, actually I can do this now. That's okay. Okay, it's been downloaded. Next, you'll run the installer, and it may prompt you for your Windows subsystem Linux password. Keep that in mind. I've already run this installer. I'm not going to do it again during the video, but paste that in, hit enter, and allow the installation to complete. Make sure to refresh your environment when it's done. I'll do that. Okay, we need to copy our user OC ID from the Oracle Web Console and the tenancy ID from the Oracle Web Console. I'm actually we'll go through those steps in a little bit of a different order here. So let's run the setup, and then it will prompt us for those two items. All right, so I'll run the setup config. It's going to ask us where we want to save the configuration. The default is fine. And it needs a user OC ID. So let's go back here. Copy the user OC ID from your Oracle Web Console. We can get it from identity, then users. All right, I'm going to go there now. I've already logged into the Oracle Cloud. This bar on the left-hand side, and then identity users. There's my user. And I can copy the OC ID and paste it in. Next, we need the tenancy ID. Let's look at the README. We can get the tenancy ID from profile, top right, and then tenancy. All right, so there's the profile, top right, and tenancy. Hi, baby. Sorry, that's just my cat. She needs attention. There's the OC ID. We'll copy it and paste the tenancy ID in. We need, and we also need to set a region. So I'm going to set US Ashburn 1. That is one of the Oracle free tier regions. It'll also ask us to set up a new key pair. We definitely need to do this. I'll hit Y for yes. The directory that the key will be stored in. Actually, don't need to hit anything, that's fine. And the name for the key, that's also okay. We need a passphrase. No, we can leave it blank. And our configuration is complete. We'll need the contents of the public key. To copy, highlight, and right-click. Make sure you highlight all the way down to that last dash. All right, we need to add this key to the Oracle Web Console. So we navigate back to identity users, our user. Here we go, identity users, our user. There it is, API keys. Now I've got too many keys here. I'm gonna delete one of my keys that I created earlier. Happy Halloween, by the way, if you're watching this on the 31st. Add public key, we'll choose paste public keys and paste the key in. That's it, that's done. This will allow our Windows Subsystem Linux environment to talk to the Oracle Cloud. We want to make sure we notate where, or the output of this command, which is here. We're going to need that later, and we're also going to need the output of this command, which is the root compartment ID or tenancy ID. Both of these commands should work. This is kind of a self-test to make sure that we've set configuration up. So let me type in this command or paste this command in, and this will output my tenancy ID, and there it is. It starts with OCID. All right, next. I want to make sure we're in the OCI directory of the Git project we already cloned. And then we also need to do the same thing in File Explorer. We're going to use File Explorer to edit our variables file. Copy this address, open File Explorer, and you'll paste it up at the top. One thing to note, change Chad to your Windows Subsystem Linux username. So you'll notice here, the name Chad, that's the name of my user, so I'll keep it. But if you need your username in Windows Subsystem Linux, type in who am I, and that will provide the value. So there we go. If it was different, if you're not Chad, you would change that right there and then hit enter. That takes us to our folder. I've already clicked this, so Windows knows to open it in Notepad, but if you double click, it might prompt you for which application to open it in. Choose Notepad. And we'll use those values that we set before. Let's scroll down to the variables section and we can look at these a little bit closer. OCI config profile, the location of the OCI config. That was this command here, and there's the location. I'm going to copy this, go back to Notepad, and make sure it's set. Mine's already set because, well, my name's Chad. All right. The root compartment ID, that's the output of the second command we ran. Copy that with a right click, paste it between the double quotes. The SSH key, we created that earlier. Let's get that SSH key. So I'm going to cat squiggly slash dot SSH ID underscore RSA dot pub. There's my SSH key. I don't need this little bit at the end. You can keep it. You don't have to. I'm going to start from here back, right click to copy, and paste it in. Make sure you're between the quotes. Management CIDR. What is Management CIDR? That's the IP range that's granted Web UI access to the Pi-hole and SSH access to the instance, as well as direct DNS access to the Pi-hole. If we also set this variable, which is the default, you can see it there. If you're deploying from home, this should be your public IP address with the /32 suffix. If you don't know what your public IP address is, that's okay. Google is your friend, or is it? You can type in, what is my IP? And Google will tell you, here's my IP, don't hack me, please. But I'm going to copy that and replace the 1234 default value with my IP address. Leave the /32 there. /32 means one IP, or a single IP address. Let's go back. Oh, and almost forgot PH password. This is the password to access the Pi-hole. So we need to change it. I'm going to make something super secure. I'm going to change it to change me one. Those are all the things that must be changed, or at least must be set in the variables file. A short note, your DO provider, DNS over HTTPS provider, that should be one of these values. I've got quite a few of them available there. I use OpenDNS. I'm okay with OpenDNS. It works fine for me. Maybe do a search online for different DO providers and the features they offer. These should all work. Some of them offer additional things like malware blocking and such, but OpenDNS works fine. That should be everything. Oh, and then there's one more section actually that we must set. So depending on the region that you'll be deploying in, and my region here is US Ashburn 1, this is the free tier compatible. But depending on the region you set, you'll need to set the image ID. This is the base image of our Linux virtual machine that we deploy. So let's go to this URL. We need to find Ubuntu 18.04 minimal. There it is. And then the OCID for the region we're deploying in. So mine is US Ashburn 1. And I'm just going to Control F, US-Ashburn 1. There we go. Let me expand this page just a bit. And I will change it. This gets updated occasionally, so you'll see the note in the TFRs file. This might need to be changed in the future as images are updated periodically, right? So as Ubuntu maybe has updates and gives those updates to Oracle, Oracle will change the OCID. Oh, and one thing, I added an A at the end. There we go. Okay, so everything's done. A quick interjection. Make sure you set an additional variable, it's now in the README, called WireGuard peers. That will generate however many you choose configurations for your WireGuard VPN. For example, if you've got at least 2 phones that you know will use the Cloudblock service you deploy, make sure you have at least 2 set. The default is 20. There's no harm in generating more than you need. I believe the upper limit is around 250. Thanks. Back to the instructions. Scroll back up. We've edited this file, now we need to save it. Easy enough. Save and close. To deploy, on to deployment. Let's make sure we're in the OCI directory. We are, but let's just double check. That's fine. And we will initialize Terraform. This is going to tell Terraform to download the Oracle specific code it needs, and maybe a few other things. Should be pretty quick. It's done. And now we'll apply. This is going to tell Terraform to read through the Terraform files that are included in my project and determine all of the resources that need to be built in the Oracle Cloud with our customized variables. I'll paste it in. It's going to begin its magic, and it's going to prompt us for the resources we're adding. All right, and if we scroll up, we can see the different objects that are getting created or plan to be created. There's a bucket, etc. It's going to prompt us, do you want to perform these actions? We'll type in yes, and we'll give it a few minutes. It's not instant. We're relying on Oracle to build the infrastructure out for us, so I'll come back when it's done. It should really just be a few minutes. Okay, Terraform is telling us that all of the resources have been added. We can now check out the output. A really important and critical part to note is the way this project works is that Terraform builds our cloud resources, and then Ansible, which I haven't mentioned too much yet, but if I scroll back up, Ansible performs the configuration of the Linux virtual machine that Terraform created. It's automatic, but we need to be patient while it performs the installation. It might be done already, I'm not entirely sure, but we can take a look. If we scroll back down to the instructions, let me go to the left here, and deploy. We just completed the deploy. We can note the output from the Terraform, that's these 3 lines. And then we wait for the virtual machine to become ready. Ansible is doing the setup of services for us. If we want to watch the Ansible setup on the virtual machine, we can SSH in and then tail a certain file. So you see here SSH in. Terraform tells us how to do that. SSH with this command. I've copied it with right click, paste it in. This is our first time connecting to this machine via SSH. I'll type in yes. And we are logged into our Pi-hole instance. And then we can tail the Cloudblock log file. It may not be there yet, but it probably is. Nope, not yet. So we'll give this a moment. Terraform is done, but Ansible is still installing the services. Let's be patient, and I'll be back once we get some output. We should see something start popping up on the screen in just a moment. Ansible has completed. We can see that here at the very end of this file, and everything was successful. There are no failed entries. I'm going to Control C to get out of the tail of the log and scroll back up, all the way back up. There we go, to our outputs. We can now access the web UI and, which is here, and the WireGuard configuration. Let's go to the web UI first. Right-click copy, paste it in. Our connection isn't private. That's okay. That's because we have self-signed certificates. Our connection is still encrypted. There's the Pi-hole web UI. I'm going to turn off my dark reader. There we go. And log in with my password that I set in my vars file. We're in. Welcome to Pi-hole. You can change all the settings you need, but the one setting I wouldn't recommend changing, or at least maybe doing a little research before you do, is under Settings, DNS. If I scroll down, where is it? Oh, right here on the left-hand side, or right-hand side. 172.18.0.2, you'll notice it's set in both places. That is our DNS over HTTPS container. If I scroll back up here, this, this last square is a Docker container, and that's what Pi-hole is reaching out to for DNS, and that in turn is reaching out to our DNS over HTTPS provider. We don't really want to change that. You could, but I would leave it alone. That's how we're getting DNS over HTTPS, and our DNS lookups are secure and encrypted all the way up to our DNS provider. That's about it there. And then finally, the WireGuard configuration. I'll highlight that and right-click it. This is going to open up in Oracle Cloud Storage. I'll sign back in. You can see I am using the free tier. Okay, we're in the bucket that stores our WireGuard configuration. You can see there's a WireGuard folder down here at the bottom. I've opened it up and scroll down. There's peer1.png. I don't know that we can view that in the browser. View object details, maybe. No, but I'll hit download. And this will give us a QR code that our clients can access. So here we go. So a couple things to note: how to use this service once you've deployed it. You could, because we set DNS underscore no VPN to 1, which is actually the default in our vars file, we can set our home router or similar to this IP address for DNS, and we can do DNS lookups to the Pi-hole service that's running in the cloud. It's only open to our home IP address, the IP address we put in the vars file management underscore CIDR. Only that IP address can access DNS at this IP address. Another thing is the WireGuard configuration. So I've got an iPad right here, for instance, or if you've got an iPhone or an Android phone, lots of devices support WireGuard. You can download the WireGuard app, and inside it, there's, if you open the app up, you'll see an option to scan the QR code, and you would scan this QR code image, and your device would be good to go, set up to use WireGuard. That way, if you're at home or out and about on a mobile network, your cellular provider, or on public Wi-Fi, something like that, you can always connect back to your Pi-hole through WireGuard to do your DNS lookups. That means you've got ad blocking everywhere you go on your device. Really great. And that's about it. That's the only thing left. I do want to show how to destroy this. So I've set up this demo and I'm done. Perhaps you want to try out a different cloud provider, or you want to use your cloud for something else. You want to get rid of this. I'm going to exit the instance, the virtual machine that's been created in the cloud, and I will destroy via Terraform. Now, the one thing I'll note is that you can't do this directly with Oracle Cloud. Oracle Cloud doesn't offer a method to empty or destroy a bucket, which is what we just saw those files in. It doesn't offer a way to destroy that bucket if there are objects inside it. And there will be an error message if you don't delete these files. Go ahead and delete, if you're done, if you want to destroy this project, delete these files. And let me get my head out of the way, or actually, let's move this a little bit out of the way. There we go. And you can delete the individual files here, right? So you have to delete these before you can destroy the rest of the resources that Terraform created, because Terraform didn't create those files, Ansible did. They're not tracked by Terraform. Okay. Terraform, destroy. Oh, and what was our command? History grep apply. Real quick. Okay. Don't mind me, I'm just trying to remember. Terraform, destroy, and then our vars file. Once again, Terraform will read through the state of all the objects that have been created, and then it's going to ask us if we want to destroy. I'll say yes, the demo is done. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.